Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Power Playbook. It's great to have you here. Please drop in chat where you're from, especially a big shout out to our regulars as well. Just give everyone a minute or two to kind of get on and get situated. Hello, Michelle from Ottawa. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get started just for the interest of time. It's 12 o'clock and I know everybody has lots of choices on where they need to be and the content they consume. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time and just get started. We have a fantastic special guest this week, but before I get into introducing him and our topic, I just want to welcome you. My name is Sarita Dua. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and you are here for Power Playbooks. Every week, my co-host Via Williams and I bring amazing rock star leaders in our industry who are so generous, not only with their time, they get nothing for this except for an hour missing in their day, essentially. So they're so generous with their time and talents, and they share with us what is working in their business. And they share with us what we call their playbooks for success. What is, they actually get into the detail of what to do and how to do it. And of course, it's a lot to cover in every week, but we love it because we want you, if you walk away with just one or two nuggets on something you want to apply to your business, it is time well spent. Also, when you register every Wednesday at noon, you register once, you're registered for all of them. You do have access to the replays, and we aim to provide items of value and just great content for you. So with that, I just want to thank you for being here. You can email us at powerplaybooks@place.com. I'll drop that in chat. If you ever have a suggestion for a speaker or content you're looking for or anything else. But without further ado, I am so excited to introduce our special guest. This week we have Jeff Yarbrough, and Jeff is from the Los Angeles market. He is an expert on luxury, and he's an expert in that he is one of the most humble human beings. So he's already going to probably cringe as I go on and on about him. We are going to wait for him to actually give a little bit of background, but today's topic specifically is how to establish a brand. What you need to think about as you establish your brand do's and don'ts in terms of creating a brand. You're going to walk away with a mini workshop today on everything related to brand, including how to even adopt or adapt a brand within yours, which he has some experience with as well. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Sarita.
Nice to see you. Did I embarrass you appropriately?
No, I embarrass easily, but not about business or marketing. Usually, we throw a lot of stuff out there that other people don't, but
I love it.
Trying to sort of push the envelope a little bit in terms of our luxury listings. I started in the business. This is my 21st year. It's actually my 21st month. My anniversary is right now. And I came into the business through a literary background and a journalism background. So branding and marketing and words had a lot of meaning for me. And I've always, up until ChatGPT, I was always very thankful that I had a really solid writing background, because in luxury marketing, the words are, to me, the second most important part of any sort of listing package, with the photographs being number one. And then sort of hitting those photographs like a hammer on a nail with the words that accompany them to make the client and prospective buyer and the seller feel a certain way about what you're doing. So I've always felt that the marriage between the words and the images are paramount in terms of getting to the luxury level and staying there, and remaining relevant in that space. And so a lot of that starts with branding. So when I first got into the business, I worked for a boutique agency called DBL. And what's so important about that is it didn't really mean anything. It was actually three partners named David Brown, Alan Long, and Lisa Coffin. And if you put that together, it's Brown Long Coffin, which would not be a good brand. So So they were smart enough to just go with kind of an amalgam of letters on an aqua background, DBL Realtors. And it was a very chic brand, very entertainment industry specific. My very first client was Marilyn Manson. That's how entertainment specific it was in 2001, 2002. And so I learned right away that the brand was kind of everything. And then we were purchased 2 years later by one of the most identifiable brands in the world, Sotheby's. And I think they're the only brand that has absolute instant recognition around the world. You can be in a first class seat on a plane to Dubai, and if someone says, "What do you do?" and you say, "I'm a realtor at Sotheby's," they know exactly where you work in their head. They don't necessarily know where I work, KW. They don't know where a lot of people work at EXP or certainly Compass. They usually have no clue as to what that meant. So therefore, taking the tincture down another level to branding yourself is important as well, because there's only ever going to be one Sotheby's, and it is what it is, with all of its flaws and problems and corporate sort of machinations behind it that constrain what realtors can do with their own branding. The great thing about KW, when I left Sotheby's after my 2-year contract was up, I went to KW specifically for this reason. And there are many places now like that, where you can express yourself in terms of who you are, what's your vision of your value proposition, and how do you visually represent that out into the world. And thus began my sort of branding challenge, was when I got to KW 17 years ago.
So I love it. I'm going to just pause for a second. And what I'm hearing you say is, right, there's this cascading waterfall, if you will. If you look at a giant, brokerage level brand, what that means to people, how recognizable it is, and then where you fit in with regards to your team or as an individual, not only within your brokerage, but just sort of independently when people see you and your brand, what you stand for. Before we jump further into the brand conversation, I just want to do a timeout and just put some, just give some scale to people. You're in the Los Angeles market. I know you specialize in luxury. I know you're also a regional ambassador for luxury, because I know you from that, being an ambassador myself for the Northwest region. I know you are.
We got the coasts covered, Sarita.
Yes, we do. Tell us a bit about how big your team is, whether you want to share volume or transactions, just kind of scale that for us and where you are today.
Yeah.
And then let's continue around your brand journey of how you created your brand and some of the evolution to that and where you're at today.
Right. Well, I've been building the teams on and off since about 10 years ago with various sort of, the typical team challenges. I feel that I have a lot of value to a team member. So in the past, when I was just at KW, I would build someone up, and possibly within a year or two, they were kind of looking at me going, "Well, I think I've milked that cow. So now what do I do?" And they'll go off and sort of start their own team or whatever. About a year ago, I partnered with Place, which I think some of you are probably aware of Place, which really provided me with a lot of tools to both expand my team and also keep my team members growing. And within Place, they can build their own brand. They can build their own mini team within a team. So that's where I am now. And in the last year, we've grown a bit larger than we were prior to Place. We're now 8 selling agents and me and my director of operations. So there's 10 of us. We are I think we're around 80 million in gross property value sold for the year. Our goal is 120. The fourth quarter is going to be strong. Traditionally, fourth quarters can be down. I think we've had to throw all of that thinking out the window because of COVID. It just shook up the way people travel and the way people work so dramatically to a point where it's unpredictable what quarter means what anymore. So, for example, I just got off the phone about a potential 8-figure listing, low 8 figures, but an 8-figure listing that I'm going to bring on the market in the middle of the fourth quarter. Most of the time prior to this, people would wait, until January or February.
Well, and I just want to giggle, right? When Jeff says low 8 figures, some of us giggle like, okay, like many of us have not been in that price point or may never be. And so the message before anyone thinks, oh, well, I don't do that price point or this doesn't apply to me. The lessons Jeff's going to share are really independent. Luxury is really a feeling, and it's very independent of there's no required criteria with regards to price. And obviously your mileage varies by market, right? So let's segue. I appreciate you giving us that. So 10 team members having a very strong year. And you've also acknowledged that seasonality is a little bit out the window now because what might have been traditional at certain quarters of the year have sort of been turned on its side based on how people work and live and travel and what home means to them. And you could take this however you want to go. I'm here just to sort of prod along. I wanted to talk about the people that are watching, right? And independent of where you're at in your business or what brokerage or anything else. If you wanted to form a personal brand, I'd love to hear from you, Jeff, on some of the things that people need to think about. And I'd love to give you permission to have clarification on, there's going to be an agent who doesn't have a brand at all. Like they're just getting started. And the beauty of that is they've got a slate. It's vanilla, right? They don't have anything to clean up or fix. And the other side of that spectrum is people that feel like they have a brand, but it's not where they want it to be. And they want to improve on their brand. Right. Let's talk about kind of thinking about branding. What are the things people need to think about? And, obviously share, from your experience, including even mistakes you may have made to come up with some of the conclusions you've got.
Yeah, I could sing that line. Mistakes, I've made a few about branding. But just to clarify something, the luxury price point as per KWRI in my area is 1.799 million. That's kind of the barrier to entry into our luxury division. And my average price point it moves around just because, it could be affected greatly by a big listing, but is 2.5 to 3.5 generally. So I didn't mean to sort of drop an 8-figure bomb on everybody.
No,
make you think that
I just love teasing you.
Yeah. So just so you know.
Yes.
But back to branding. Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's super important. And one of the things that's great about being a realtor is being able to be an entrepreneur and sort of helm your own destiny. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a brand, let's say you're working in an agency that sort of provides you with a brand and you're comfortable under that brand, I would say stay under that brand, because if that agency is sort of how you're identifying in your town, area, or space, and it's efficacious, then you don't need to go to all this B activity and C activity that the rest of us have been through to sort of try again to strike out with a brand that works. So just to sort of give you my background, so our team is called Jeff Yarbrough Group, which is probably the most imaginative name I could have come up with. It's my name and group. We couldn't decide, is it team, is it group, is it whatever, collective. There's all kinds of nouns.
Fun words, right?
Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun words for the third word, but the J and the Y, Jeff Yarbrough, was pretty clear, right?
Yeah, right. But it wasn't always that. And it was only recently that. And when I started the team that I have to sort of say was the genesis of Jeff Yarbrough Group, it was called LA Lux Group, LUXE. And the idea behind it was, what would it look like on the side of a private airplane, like a private jet or something? And the art direction idea was to aviation, people in movement, with ability to move, ability to do whatever they wanted. So he stylized it like an airline logo, and everything fell from that. A lot of our mailers looked like boarding passes. They looked like luggage tags. We sent out luggage tags. So we really took hold of that idea. And it resonated But what I started to realize is my sphere, my clients really didn't know where I worked. They never really connect the dots. I don't know if any of you have ever felt that before, where they really have no idea who the brokerage is. And then they don't even know that I'm LA Lux Group myself, like that maybe I'm working for someone else. My team kept coming to me saying, your value proposition is your experience in the luxury market. We want to work with you to access that and make it simple for us to get a showing at a 7-figure listing without having to show proof of funds, without having to provide the names of the clients, perhaps. So they came to me and said, can you change the name of the team and have your name in it? And I thought democratically, everybody would want to have ownership of something that didn't have my name in it. But it was very
more neutral and appeal to everyone, right? As opposed to make it around you.
Right. Rather than working for Jeff Yarbrough, because that's really what I thought the connotation of it kind of was. But then I realized that they wanted to take ownership of my name, and they wanted to grow with the team and become a more integral part of the team. And it just became kind of like a law firm name. You know what I mean? It has meaning for the people that it needs to have meaning for. And then it's just a name that nobody can spell to everybody else. So that's how we arrived at Jeff Yarbrough Group, and also how we arrived at things like their email address is at jeffyarbrough.com. Because when they send an email to a top agent that they don't know, maybe they're 2 years into their business, that agent sees my name and responds quicker, believe it or not. If we could do any sort of, tracking on this, I know it's proven, than they would if they just got an email from kw.com or from, treeoaks.com or whatever it is. So there's two ways to go on branding, really. Is it you? And if it's you, then you have to be the value proposition. So it's hard to be a new agent with not a lot of experience and being the Brad Smith Group, because I don't know what message that is sending out to people beyond your sphere. So what I see a lot of is younger agents kind of choose the path. If you compare like Apple to Michael Jordan, Apple is a high concept or a low concept brand. Now, Steve Jobs is a very well-known figure behind it, but when he started, he chose to go with a concept brand. He didn't call it Jobs or something. And then Michael Jordan, you have Air Jordan, and then you have all of Michael Jordan's stuff is what I call a name, image, likeness brand, where it's his face, his name, and his likeness is used in a lot of the advertising. So if somebody has market share, I've come to the conclusion through this mutiny that I had, where all my team members were like, we're changing the name, that you might want to consider just going with your name and calling it a day, and not being so creative about, what kind of the house is going to look like on the logo and what the tree is going to represent. And then if that's not the case, then find a concept brand that really directs you to the people you want to reach out to. And that can be specific to your area, to your town. But it needs to speak to them, because if it doesn't say anything, branding is kind of meaningless. So it either has to say, here's who I am, and this is what I represent. I represent a high level of service. Just my name does, because people know me for that. Or it's a concept brand that you can grow and eventually change or not. But those are the two ways I think you have to look at it.
Perfect. And while we're talking, if you guys are nodding and taking lots of notes, Jeff does have an item of value for us. By the end of this call, you can email us, and he's got a PDF sharing some of these thoughts on how to create the brand and how to maintain it, and some of the things you need to ask yourself as you create it. If you're interested, I'm going to drop the email in right now, and you can email. One thing I do want to note, and I love the clarification on the concept brand versus the name brand. I'm hearing you say, Jeff, like, I actually was caring about my team. So I was trying to be sort of quote unquote generic. And then they came back to me because they wanted to be linked to what
Mhm.
they viewed as excellence, right? You're not saying my name is Jeff Yarbrough and I'm excellent, but
Right.
you're saying there's brand equity in the marketplace, even so that if I was an agent on your team and I'm trying to show a home or I'm trying to get my offer considered with multiple
Mhm.
offers, I want to link with you because that your name and your reputation and your years of service and the way you treat agents actually would set me and my client apart from perhaps the competition. So I love that you kind of, it's really about what you stand for. And it feels like
Yeah.
that's one of the first steps is to determine what is your value, because all
Mhm.
these things you're talking about in terms of emotion and empowering people to kind of be attracted to your brand, it
Right.
starts with knowing what you stand for, right? If you
Yeah.
stand for service and luxury, you're going to go in one direction. If you stand for always responsive at all times, or I do more than anyone else, there's so many different value propositions.
Yeah.
It's just understanding what yours is, right? And then having the
Yeah.
brand match it.
Absolutely. And when I started at KW, which had, of course, was the first brokerage in the world really that figured out how to work teams into the brokerage and how to monetize the team model in the brokerage, there was a very successful team in Beverly Hills called the Revolution Group, which I thought was the strangest name for a real estate group. But they were the most successful team on the west side of Los Angeles, which is where all the expensive real estate was. And they did have a tagline. So you also have to think about two other things. One is a tagline, because that should always, if there's space, it should define who you are. It's sort of, it conveys a clear and consistent purpose and standard through that tagline. So they were Revolution Group, and their tagline was, "We revolutionized real estate." So I don't know what they did any different, but the feeling that they were conveying is, oh, forward thinking, technology, speed, alacrity, because when you just see Revolution Group, you wonder if they're riding around on steeds in like pre-revolutionary war outfits. But but then that tagline sort of got them going. Ours is just simply Los Angeles real estate, because it's my name and then it's where I am, in a very broad sense. So that's one thing to think about, is the tagline and how that says possibly what you want to say, in addition to the logo. And the other thing is the logo has to be then distilled 4 times. You come up with the design for the logo, and then there's got to be sort of a webbed version of the logo that's usually stretched out in a horizontal way. And then there has to be a smaller version of the logo that's maybe stacked and easy to place. And then there has to be a bug. And so a bug is something that goes way down in the corner of a page of a brochure or something, a little medallion. So if you're working on a brand, you should be working with a designer, first of all, I think, but it has to fit those 4 categories: the inspo logo, the web logo, the sort of minimal version of the logo, and then the truly small. Ours is just JYG in a navy blue box is the smallest one. So if it won't fit in one of those places, then it's not the right logo. It's like OJ in the glove.
Some people may not understand that
I know, I
reference,
know.
but
I'm speaking, my age is
um,
showing. Sorry.
yeah, Jeff, quick question, because you have this great, problem, or not even problem, asset, I should say, which is years and years of experience, including 17 years at your current brokerage, and just a great history. Leo in the chat asks, what if you're a newer agent, and what do you recommend for a young team that either doesn't have a solid brand reputation yet, right? The keyword is yet, they're building their brand reputation, or they're in the process of rebranding as they've switched their brokerage, but they don't have that kind of legacy of like, I've been doing this for a couple decades. Because like
Right.
you, Jeff, my 20th anniversary is next month, November, right? So like some of us that have just been doing this for a while, things evolve, but we do have the luxury of, pun intended, of a host of past clients and a strong sphere because of doing this for a long time. But if you're new, what brand advice would you give them?
Yeah. And a lot of times I'm talking to new agents in group discussions about this, about sort of getting started and hoping to push into luxury. in the handout that Sarita is going to give you, I'll just read sort of some notes that I have in here that I've written for this topic in particular. Is how do you arrive at your first brand? You have to ask yourself what distinguishes you, sort of mull that around. What are the standards and character that you and possibly your team members represent? Will it reflect the size and depth of your sphere of influence? What emotions do you evoke in others? Not the logo. What is your impact on business and on people you work with? Do people gravitate toward you? Do you empower them in some way? And is it a direct reflection of the value that you give others? And I think the last one is the most important point, because the logo has to reflect the old, tired value proposition. What is it? And if you can identify that VP, and whether that's you or the team itself, because the logo starts to become, like, for example, if in my case, since my logo is my name, I'm super sensitive about who does what on my team out there in the world, because it all reflects directly onto me. If I was the Oak Tree Glen Group, maybe it wouldn't hit me right in the face if there's a problem. But when it's my name out there, and the behavior or the process or the problem isn't in line with our value proposition, then that's something to worry about and fix. So that's why the genesis of the logo has to come from the value proposition. And if you kind of get down and really get into those 4 or 5 points and answer those questions, not thinking about a logo or a branding, and then start to let the answers speak to you, like, does it come out that you guys are, super quick on the draw at everything? So is the tagline, a need for speed, and then does the logo sort of grow from that tagline into something that is, forward momentum or something? I don't mean that's the name of it, but
Sure.
Sometimes it can be the tagline first, and then it goes to the logo. And you have to be, somewhat visual to figure this out. And also, like, we do logos for properties. We brand some of our big listings with their own logo. So we're doing this all the time. We're like, what does this house say? How do we encapsulate this house in a symbol? And my work with the designers at Place has been very efficacious in pleasing the sellers, because sometimes, I'm working for an audience of 1 or 2, not thousands, and just pleasing the clients. And so you just have, and I always ask myself those same questions, like, what is it about this house that's different, and how do we adapt a logo to it? And so that's sort of third level. But on that first level, it's got to be real. It really has to be reflective of who you are and what you guys are up to. I hope that answers the question.
What you did, and what you didn't say is it's really not a function of a number of years or doing this for forever. It's really about doing that self work, whether you started today or tomorrow versus 20 years ago. Doing that self-work of what you stand for. And that takes probably some doodling and some thinking. And like you said, it's visual, it's emotional. It might be asking people that you know and don't know on, when you think of me, what comes to mind, because we think we might know. And then you get this like very clear answer from others on how you're perceived. And that's part of your brand too. So, and you did another huge aha that I just caught, right? Which is, we talked about brokerage, team, individual, but all the concepts you're talking about can go right to that property, to the logo for the property, the audience for the property, the story for the property. What does that property represent? You can take it right down to, like you said, micro marketing or micro brand awareness to, they have just an audience of 5 for, let's say, Marilyn Manson's, property, or whoever. Like, you may have a smaller audience, but still have a story visually as well as with the words that you're trying to convey, and the same concepts matter.
Yeah. And it's, my value proposition in my market is, I walk around the streets and people come up to me and go, "Oh, you're that agent with those pretty properties." So I've created that. That isn't true. I have a lot of listings that I love equally as my pretty ones, but they're not my pretty ones, But so people identify me by what I'm doing, what I'm putting out there, the work we're putting into the visuals, the work we're putting into possibly sub-branding a listing out there, and the words behind that listing. So my value proposition has sort of come as now it comes full circle. Because what you always want, and I think I wrote that down here, commit to fortifying your brand every single day with relentless practice. Make the message clear, concise, and energized. And when your brand has validity, it compels others to act accordingly. So that's why other agents will come up to me at brokers and go, how do you get these beautiful properties? Well, we make them that way, is one answer. But they're identifying me with beauty out there in the real estate landscape. And so that's been so gratifying that all that work just kind of, I don't have to say anything. When I walk into a listing, they're like, I know. I don't need to see your book, your pretty pictures. I get it.
We know. Well, that's why we called you.
Instagram helps with that too. Yeah.
But I love what you said, right? Which I put this down as an aha, right? That when someone plays your brand value back to you, the desired brand value of like Jeff, like you just said, the JYG is about pretty property. Like we're about beautiful properties. And when they start saying that back to you without you actually saying it, you've created this, curated this image where not everyone is beautiful, but you make them all beautiful and they play it back to you. That's when you know you've kind of arrived.
Yeah.
If I could share briefly, mine is asksarita.com for any questions, big or small, asksarita.com. And it's interesting. I didn't realize it, but I had someone call me like I was Google or Siri. Hey, Sarita, I just needed to ask Sarita, we need a roofer. Who should we go to? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's exactly what I want to be. And it's kind of fun when you see that it's actually working the way you thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very positive, very encouraging. Yeah.
So we've talked about thinking about the branding and kind of asking ourselves some questions as we create it. I do, just with the interest of time in the next, 15 to 20 minutes, I want to talk about how you maintain the brand. And I'd love to save maybe 5 to 10 minutes to talk about the opportunity you had of adopting a brand and all the things you went through to make that happen. And, you manage your time, but make sure let's cover those two topics.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, the maintenance of the brand is really just, and this will happen to all of you when you sort of, and look, don't be afraid to fail either. I've seen a lot of agents rebrand several times, a handful of times before they kind of really figured out the match for themselves. And that can be just because it wasn't the right design direction. It wasn't fully thought through, or that it just didn't resonate out there in the world. So, because like I said, in my iteration of branding, there's really only been 2, but Jeff Yarbrough Group is really just now what it is to maintain it is to just continue to reinforce the perception that we are going to treat all of our properties, like we treat our luxury listings, that you, the consumer, will have an almost identical experience with us because that's all we know. Our machine is built to do that. And so we're going to sort of put you through this glamorization process to try to present your property as best we can. No matter what the inherent challenges are. I sold a house a couple of years ago for about $6.5 million that didn't have a roof. They had ripped the roof off. So, because it was in the middle of a bloody divorce. So we made the property look really glamorous, but it didn't have a roof. So, I mean, anything's possible. We don't try to hide reality, but, and we are very careful about not using too much technology to alter perceptions. Although I think there's a filter on me or something today, but that's fine. So I think it's just, that's part of reinforcing the brand, I guess. But I think once you identify the brand and you start to realize the connectivity of it to you and how it's moving you forward, then you just have to keep a keen eye on that and keep that alive. Because it can't do it on its own. All it is a name or an image, and it really needs you to be reinforcing it and putting it in the right places, in the applicable places that you can advertise it, and also attract people to it. Like I just got an email yesterday from just an unbelievable legacy client who asked me to make a charitable contribution. And in the forms, as we've all had these emails, right, come to us, there's, if you'd like a logo placement, so many thousands of dollars for that. And I was like, check, because even if she sees it and only recognizes it, she's the only one it resonates with, I'm doing my job for that legacy client and keeping my brand in the forefront of her mind and showing forward action on her behalf that has nothing to do with real estate directly. So that's the kind of thinking you have to have around the brand when you're given the opportunity to put it somewhere.
I love it. And I love that you shared the brief story, because honestly, Jeff, you're so convincing. As I sit here and talk to you, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's got all these beautiful properties at the high price point, and he doesn't have the ulcer I have every day with the terminations and the crazy town and all of that. And the truth is, you have all the same stuff we do.
We all have the same stuff.
Yeah.
There's no escaping
you believe
any
your
of it.
properties are special. No. And it's a matter of your mindset and then this sort of vision you create and believe so wholeheartedly that others believe it too.
Yeah. And that's a lot more stress too, by the way, Sarita. I mean, I think when you are also concerned about perception at a very high level, my current office manager pulled me aside a couple of years ago and said, you know what your problem is? Nobody can meet your standards. And that's a problem. And you need to knock that down to 85% is cool. If they're meeting your objectives at the 85% level, then just let go of the 15. So when you're hyper focused on performance and perception, you also have to give yourself a break, or you end up like Sarita and I with ulcers. So
but it's that, consistent, you can go for perfection, whether we hit it or not, right? It's just having that standard and striving to be better every single day, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your unique brand opportunity, because by the way, this story may not resonate to everyone because we may not all have the opportunity to adopt a brand in our marketplace, but Jeff did, and he's going to share a little bit about what happened and what he had to think about, especially because he has a strong brand already. And so these are some lessons, whether you have a chance to adopt a brand or again, you're trying to figure out what yours is. I think it really plays. So go ahead, Jeff, and tell us the story of a local brand in your marketplace and your ability to potentially take that brand on.
So I was walking through the LA logo shelter the other day and checking out the little logos in the cages that were there. That wasn't it. When you said adopting,
you didn't come home from Petco with the logo on a leash.
With a logo, a new logo. So when I started at KW, I'll make this as short as I can, but I want to give you the background on why this happened. When I was first at KW with a couple of agents who are now partners with me in this logo, who were also kind of at the forefront of everything, Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez. There was this team called the Busy Blondes, which we all thought was the dumbest name, kind of. But it was run by these two powerful women, Judy Scheller and Ray Wayne, in the West Los Angeles market. And they were dominating that market, mainly kind of at a middle price point, but tons of units, tons of activity, great reputation, an identifiable name. And they were both blonde in person, but not in private, or at least not to their colorist. They were not blonde. And the lead listing specialist on the team was a brown-haired guy. But I don't know how they came up with that name, but they did. and it has resonated. If you walk around West LA, I was having a convo with a lawyer the other day about a real estate transaction, and I just decided to poll him and say, hey, what real estate teams, he's about 45, powerful lawyer, entertainment lawyer. I said, what teams in LA pop to your mind? Now, the Busy Blondes have not been transacting with any regularity for years. And he goes, well, the Busy Blondes probably first. And I'm like, yeah, probably first, right? And it just reinforced for me and for my partners that this is a brand that has street cred. So that's what we were looking for, is the cred. So it took us about a year to sort of figure out. You would think it would take us a minute, but we finally dropped the Blondes, and now it's just Busy's, and it's launching as Busy's.com. You can preview the website there. Bizzys, no apostrophe. Why do we want to do this? It's really kind of nostalgic to the three of us who are kind of pushing this forward, because those women, who are also written about in Gary Keller's brilliant Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, he chronicles their journey of success as well as other agents, but he focuses on them a lot as kind of the first big team that became, really active and successful. And women have always ruled in real estate. I mean, the top echelon of realtors in LA, where I work, and in New York, and wherever I go in a big city, are women. So it was no surprise that it was nothing shocking or out of, character that these two women were killing it, right? So we're now going to launch that brand alongside Jeff Yarbrough Group, and it's going to focus on an area of town that we don't focus on a lot. So it kind of has its fill. It kind of has its specific place within our town where I can market directly to an area that I don't walk into and have name recognition. They might know me from some other place in town, but it's a kind of a vast area that I don't have a lot of business in. So it's kind of great for me to develop team members and start to embed them in that area and reignite this existing brand that we're going to bring back to life. So we got rid of Blondes, and let's talk a little mechanics here. We partnered with a logo designer. I told them, do you guys know the Beverly Hills sign? You might know it from being here or visiting. It's kind of a shield.
Yeah, it looks like I know from Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
So it looks like a shield. Yeah.
Like a little shield. So I said, flip that shield upside down and let's go with a bee, like a little honeybee, kind of cartoony, with a really big stinger. So I don't know why I wanted a big stinger, but I felt that was part of the image. So that's what it looks like. And we're just starting to talk to people about it now in terms of team members. So this is infantile, stages right now, but we're very excited about launching.
Did you have that limiting belief of, okay, I've got my brand, we've got this brand, and A plus B might equal confusion? Or did you view it as A plus B is greater than A alone and B alone, and we're going to figure this out?
I mean, because I've been steeped in, my real estate career at KW in terms of, quote, expansion teams, which are usually traditionally, ask Sarita in Phoenix, ask Sarita in Anchorage or whatever, right? You extend your brand.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're
yeah. I mean, as it exists, you don't mess with it, right? You don't rename it, because that's the power. And you guys have to think about that, because if you ever do expand to an associate town or embed a team member in some, suburb that's an hour away, you don't really want to rebrand that person. But this is an area of town where this team has identifiability. And we're not getting traction there because we're not paying attention. So this will make us pay attention to that area of town. And I do think A plus B equals more in terms of this idea. And it'll allow us to have Both. We'll have Apple and we'll have Michael Jordan. We have Jeff Yarbrough team and we have the Busies. So we have a concept brand over here that people can really take ownership of. And then you have my team over here sort of doing the higher end stuff in different areas of town. So I hope it works out. Have me back in 6 months and I'll let you know.
Well, I am actually drop in chat just a hi Jeff, if you're getting value from this. And of course, I'm leading the audience here, but if you're getting value from this, the one thing I want to share is that if the other assumption is all this stuff costs money.
Yeah.
And I know, Jeff, that you are so careful with regards to how you spend money and your expenses. And if people are interested in a follow-on, I would love to do a deeper dive with you on how do you do all this and not lose your shirt, like figuratively and literally with regards to cost? Because that's one thing that most people might just start jumping to conclusions and saying, I can't afford all of this. This is great conceptually, but I got to go back to my supermarket sticks and whatever, because that's not me. And I'm like, the truth is you were featured on stage at a recent conference by our CFO because of your focus on expense management. And so you can have it all and do it smartly. And it's definitely a follow-on conversation, but I wanted to give a teaser to people if they want the next level, sort of the behind the scenes on how to do this and do it in a smart way. I would love to bring it back, Jeff.
That'd be great. And it really is part of becoming a successful agent lead, because look, if your team isn't profitable, nobody's sticking around because you're not able to do anything at that point for them. So it's your responsibility, if anybody's thinking of team building, to, make sure that it's a profitable machine and that you can support their wants and needs. And so there's various ways to sort of attack expenses, even like branding, which can get outrageously expensive. Branding, web development, all of that stuff. But there's the other side of midnight too, where it isn't that expensive to do it. And it can be just as effective. You just have to know who to approach and how to approach them.
Perfect. So in the last few minutes, just any last minute takeaways, Jeff, that you want the audience to think about, or just nuggets you want to reinforce? I'd love to kind of just spend the last couple of minutes before we wrap up with just your kind of last minute advice to the audience.
Well, in this era of media, I think it's very important to take a look at your social media. If you're going to embark on a change or you're going to embark on a creation, take a look at your social media for the last year and sort of see what that says to you about what you've been doing. And also maybe have someone else take a look at it who maybe isn't like down your throat on social media, and sort of ask them what the 3 words that come to mind are when they scroll through your last year of content. And if you don't have a lot of content up there yet, be thinking about expanding that, because I recently was up for a listing, and one of the criteria that was brought up is, oh, we really like your Instagram. And I think it can work in reverse. Like, do you like your Instagram? Or does someone else sort of from an independent lens like what they're seeing? And what does that tell you about a potential brand that you might be able to come up with? So I think starting with you and maybe your potential team members or current team members, and getting that all in sync, thinking about really crafting that brand and the messages that are going out. Of course, you're all sending out some of the same stuff if it's real estate content, but even the other stuff, like how do you remain yourself, either as a team member or as a team lead, while also being in concert with the message of that brand?
Well, I love that, because you're really talking about authenticity, and that you can't wake up and be someone you're not. Like your history for the last year shows your true colors and the warts, good and bad. And if
Yeah.
you wake up and want to be a different version of yourself, you have to be consistent with that behavior,
Yeah.
because you can't, people see what they see and what they've seen all along. You can't just change it overnight, right? So
Yeah.
with that, I love all of this. What we did, which may have been a disservice, but I think it's still a good one because it kicked off this conversation, is we gave you essentially the beginning of a workshop in a short webinar, and the work that's now involved or required is a lot of self-work on assessing your brand and where you're at and where you want to go. And a big start is this item of value that you created that we are going to email everyone. I've dropped it into chat. I'm going to drop it again. But it's really powerplaybooks@place.com if you'd like Jeff's thoughts on branding and his detailed information on thinking about it, creating it, maintaining it, and kind of his sort of rules on what we need to do and not do when it comes to our brand. Thank you so much, Jeff. This has been wonderful, and I can speak already for the people that are interacting here that I believe this is the first of multiple conversations, and we're really blessed and honored to have you in our world.
Oh, well, thanks. If you guys have any questions, you can always DM me on Instagram. It's my name in reverse. So it's Yarbrough Jeff.
Perfect.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Perfect. And then again, it's powerplaybooks@place.com. Thanks, everyone. See you at the same time, Wednesday at noon Pacific, every Wednesday. Thank you for being here. And please send this to your friends if you see value. We'd love to have more and more people join us. Bye now.